Good morning, everyone. Good morning, this is Kudrix. Welcome to the seminar. So this is the favorable first slot on Sunday, Easter Sunday morning at 10 a.m. So hopefully we have some people in the stream audience. And obviously the great Orga team for the seminars is here on site. So thanks for being here, guys. Anyways, we are holding this seminar here, and I'd like to give a brief introduction about myself. I'm Kudrix in the demo scene. I am affiliated with Echtzeit, the Swiss Demo Scene Association, and Computerkunst e.V. in Berlin for the demo scene. And I am active in the Art of Coding project, which is trying to get the UNESCO, demo scene listed as UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage, and this is a very rewarding thing in the past couple of years. And I try to make myself useful with outreach for the demo scene and also contributing with the seminars. And this is now a topic I'm bringing to you that is coming from my work domain. I work mostly in cybersecurity and particularly digital identity and everything that has to do with trust in the online world. And this is why I'm bringing this first-person project to you. And let's try to give you a bit of an intro what that is and what you can expect out of this. In general, we call this a social utility, and in the seminar you will get a bit more detail what we actually mean by this, and this is putting the people first as opposed to putting centralized organizations first. So why are we doing this? This is not an old idea, so this is not a new idea, this is a very contemporary thing now, but it has been around for a while. So my friend Doc Searles, who is the author of the book Project VRM, and Intention Economy and Clue Train Manifesto. So he's invented vendor relationship management, which means we turn around the customer relationship management, and we as consumers, citizens, and people communicate our intentions, what we want, and then we get offers. So this is completely turning everything around. And he wrote about first-person technologies already in 2014. And it is very well summarized with a quote here: we won't get back our privacy or make real-world progress toward personal freedom until we develop and deploy first-person technologies for everybody. Without them, our democracies and marketplaces will also continue to be compromised. And look how prophetic that was in 2014 already. Look where we are now. So I think there is a clear need for first-person technologies which put our needs as citizens, consumers, people first. So what do we actually want to do? What does that mean? We want to build first-person technologies which start with the individual and work on the individual's behalf. That means we have some kind of software agent that works on our behalf and acts on our wishes, and in one particular setting. And this isn't only about identity, it's about any type of relationship, about groups, communities, such as the demo scene, and ultimately also society as a whole. And this means we want to build first-person technologies that allow us to build a fully decentralized social graph that is not controlled by any company or government. And if you think about this, this is turning exactly everything around as we're having it today. So we want to be in control of everything we have on the data perspective, and particularly our own relationships in the online world and also in the physical world. So the asymmetries of power of the web today is that this is the fact that we have now, and realistically, the only way how we can build this is by a bottom-up approach. This means we come from the people and we have to do it as people, and this cannot be something that is centrally built again and put onto us. So if you look at what's happening today in the digital world as well, we have governments on the top-end side, we have people on the lower-end side, and governments try to get something ramped up in the sense of digital identity. We have different governments across the world, particularly in the EU. We have the EU Digital Identity Wallet Initiative, and many other states and nations around the world who try to give us as citizens very strong, secure, safe digital wallets in which we have our personal identities and can use them in the online world. I think the governments are trying to do this and are doing this quite well. However, are they building something that we as citizens completely are put center stage, and where we are in the front row and have complete freedom about all the personal data that we have? I think this is something that is intended, but in the end, it's still governed by a central regime, and this is not what's needed for real first-person technologies. So how do we want to do this? This is not an easy task. So we are getting this built from the bottom up, and this requires to look into 5 different domains. I will come to that in the rest of the seminar, actually. And we need this to be universally interoperable so that we, in fact, have this as a means for ourselves to control and not, again, as a central tech agency. So the 5 steps, 5 building blocks are first identifiers. This is like the regular basic thing that we need to tackle first. Then we need credentials, which is like a modern form of a verifiable credential, a certificate. We need wallets and agents. I mentioned that before. So this is not just a thing that operates on a command line. This is something that we have as a software agent that is controllable by us, ideally in a very convenient and user-friendly way. Then we need an ecosystem as such, which will basically be the codes of conduct which allow these first-person technologies to act. And to make this accessible across everything, we need different trust networks that need to be interoperable, and I will come to all that in a second. So first, and obviously across all these different domains, we need the first person as the prime directive. And this is not easy to achieve, as you will see when we come to more detail. So, step 1, identifiers. So there is a whole book about decentralized identity and decentralized identifiers. This comes from the idea of self-sovereign identity, where you control your identity in the online world and are very sovereign in what you do in terms of building connections and sharing data. So this has been around a while. I have been working in this field since 2015 already. And now, with all these wallet initiatives from the governments picking up, this is something that is creating now more momentum. I thought it would be faster. I mean, I have been in it since more than 2015, so more than almost 10 years. So this is kind of a thing that I thought would be easily adopted soon, because everyone would understand this is very important. So it hasn't happened, but now everyone in the government and also in business domains is seeing the values of these principles and adopting them more or less. And one core part of these activities is decentralized identifiers. And this book that you see here, Self-Sovereign Identity, in which I co-authored one chapter in the online version of it, is actually about decentralized identifiers and how they work. So this is an identifier that you control and store, and under which you can be reached. And the key fact that we need for those is to be self-certifying identifiers. I'll come to that in a second, what that means. In the end, it's just public-private key pairs. However, you have a cryptographic binding between the public key and the private key. And this means that you have a self-referential identifier. And we call these self-certifying identifiers. And there's a cryptographic binding, and then you have the self-certifying identifier. And the most important thing is this must be portable. And these self-certifying identifiers are the most self-sovereign variant of those. So they are not locked into any specific web domain or a blockchain or whatever. So they are completely sovereign under your control, and you can port them wherever you want them to be at home. This is very important because the early days of self-sovereign identifiers were usually tied to something with blockchain, and this is probably not the best thing to do anymore. So of many different reasons, I don't want to go into the full detail. The key thing is you decide where this self-certifying identifier is at home. And this is all being standardized in international standardization groups. So this particular thing is now under Trust over IP, which is a Linux Foundation project. And you will see how different organizations all under Linux Foundation play a role in that game. So to sum it up, first-person identifiers are these self-certifying identifiers, and this is what we need for this work that we're doing here. Next piece is credentials. So credentials is actually now the content piece of the first-person domain. So credentials are more like a modern format of cryptographic certificates. So they are basically standardized under different groups. We have W3C, which is the web standards community, and there is a verifiable credential standard completely fleshed out there. 2.0 credential format standard is almost done. So this is a thing that has been around and has been fleshed out for a while. I don't want to omit that there is many competing different standards, but W3C is basically the premier spot where all this work is happening and other standards draw from them. Other jurisdictions and domains may use other identifiers such as SD-JOT or MDoc, which is the mobile driver's license standard, and so on. But let's say there is good work underway, and I think this is kind of solved, so we just have to make a pick. The key requirement why we need these credentials is that we want to prove personhood in the online world. So as we see AI being at the rise everywhere, we cannot really trust our online interactions anymore. We don't really know who's on the other side of the line. So that's the reason why we need to have stronger proof that we are humans in the online world and not just clicking a button or selecting the traffic light signs in a 3x3 pictogram. So actually, this is something that is a problem space that has been addressed or tried to be addressed, and to some degree, government identity is addressing this. However, in general, we need more privacy-preserving tools to prove personhood. And we need personhood credentials, and they are fleshed out in this paper that you see here. It's an academic paper by many different authors who have published this in August 2024, and they see there's a clear problem space to address, and we will see the relevance of that in a second in practical terms as well. It brings us two key requirements why we need these personhood credentials. Sorry, something happened. Two key requirements why we need these personhood credentials. So the first is we need to have credential limits, which means the personhood credentials issuers must only issue one per person. This means we have to have a control that we don't have issued many to one person, because then they could replicate those or sell them off or something like that. So we need a governance process about the issuance of those. And the second important thing is we need unlinkable pseudonymity. That means we have the identifiers, and we need to have zero knowledge proof capability to present these identifiers. And this is a thing that is currently not completely addressed in most government schemes because of the cryptographic procedures that are relevant for that. They are not regulated under BSI or NIST standards for now. So we need zero knowledge proof capability that is true in the sense of the cryptographic meaning and not only selective disclosure by single attributes. So the basic idea is that we have a strong proof of personhood using zero knowledge proofs on our own verified trust relationships. And this is a key thing that we will see as the main spot of interaction for the end users. So the first example of a first-person credential could be a simple thing. It's an aggregate of our verified first-person relationships, meaning I have built a connection, and we will see in a second how that actually works, with another person, completely on my own terms, self-sovereign with my own software agent, and it can be either from a business domain, from a community, or a personal relationship, and we can verify these relationships in a completely privacy-preserving way. Everything is pseudonymous by default, and no personal data is there. So this is like an aggregate in the cryptographic proof that we have these relationships without disclosing any further detail, and we have cryptographic trust that this is accurate. So what powers the first-person credentials is a very specific type of verifiable credential, which is the relationship credential, verifiable relationship credential. And how these are built is an interesting piece of technology underneath. And the best explanation of verifiable relationship credentials came up in a workshop led by the Linux Foundation Executive Director Jim Zemlin and his staff at the Linux Foundation Member Summit in March, in which he said, verifiable relationships are basically Phil Zimmerman's dream. For those who don't know who Phil Zimmerman is, he's the inventor of PGP. PGP never really happened at scale because it was a bit clunky to handle. And what we need for our first-person credentials to work is but the same thing. So we need like a key signing party, which you needed for PGP, and this was never something that really scaled. So what we are trying to do is basically make PGP very easily accessible and useful across many different use cases. So in general, the verifiable relationship credential creation is a key signing party. And this is now an illustration how that actually works. We don't need to go into full detail. You always know we have Alice and Bob who are interacting in the online space, and they both interact with their wallet, which is their software agent to do actually the stuff. And they create a handshake first with the QR code. And this means they create such a decentralized identifier, one of the skits that I mentioned. And they basically build a pairwise connection between their two agents, no central intermediary needed. And they basically build this interaction with their agents. However, this is not an end in itself, because they now need to have a proof that they actually have done such a thing. So they issue one another a verifiable relationship credential, which attests that the DID of Bob and DID of Alice are in the same data space, and they sign such a credential and issue it to one another. So first, Bob signs a credential that contains both DIDs in his way, and then on the other way around, Alice signs a credential and issues it to Bob in the other way around. So we basically now have proof that these two know each other via their software agents and have made a handshake and have attested to one another that they have met each other and know each other with this cryptographic handling. This can be a very easy process, as similar to connecting via Signal Messenger, QR code, LinkedIn QR code, or whatsoever. And this is a very simple thing that's done by the agents directly. So this is now first proving that they are connected. However, this is just the fundament for everything else that comes on top of that. So now you actually can do other things that can be very important, and I will explain in the end why I think this is so strong and powerful. We can do vouching of each other's traits or skill domains and expertises. And this is something that is very cool to build a decentralized reputation graph, so that you basically attest to your peers or your friends what they are good at. And you know that from other social media installations, how this is handled. So this is something in which you can do this in a completely decentralized and privacy-preserving way. And this is described also very elegantly in a blog post by Phil Windley, who is the co-founder of the Internet Identity Workshop, which happens twice a year in California. Just this April, there was the 40th anniversary of this conference. So he wrote a blog post, very well explaining how these first-person credentials create digital trust. And if you want to look at the full blog post, here is a QR code to scan, and the link is also in the presentation. So that's the basis for the vouching, and this means you can now, with the picture that you already know, we can add certain other artifacts that attest these skills and other things with an extension of the already issued certificates. And this means, like Bob could say, I vouch that Alice is a microbiologist, an author, and a gardener, and Alice has now proof that Bob thinks she's good at that, or is convinced that she's good at that, and he's even willing to give this as cryptographic proof as an artifact to her in her wallet. So this is like recommendations that you get in the real world, but now in a completely decentralized way in a cryptographic proof via your agent. So this is the summary that Phil put in the blog post. So this is like a key signing party I explained earlier in the PGP world. However, PGP never really made it easily accessible. And so verifiable relationship credentials with more intelligent and easier to handle software agents make this a more powerful tool. So now we have something at hand that we can use in different domains. And we can use this for anything like personal relationship management, mutual authentication, and secure messaging, whatever you think. And we can brainstorm in the end what that actually means. I think we have a strong tool that is available for different processes that are really real-world things that we do day by day and can now do in a decentralized way. So again, in short, personhood credentials and verifiable relationship credentials, that are the first-person credentials we need for complete privacy-preserving digital identity and decentralized reputation. And this is actually very cool because we have this as a tool available, and we need this to be easily accessible in the wallets and agents. I've mentioned that before, but I will show you a real-world example now why this actually matters. So there are many, many different wallet projects in the world out there today. We have Linux Foundation, Decentralized Trust, and Open Wallet Foundation as a Linux Foundation project, which are open source communities tackling these problems. So many different wallets and agent programs are at home at these instances, and tech is being developed by the communities under these organizations. So this is very important that this is all open and reviewable and open source. And for this first-person technologies to actually work, we will need to have these wallets support first-person identifiers and first-person credentials as outlined in the previous two sections of the presentation. So this is obviously, I don't want to go into the rabbit hole here now, but obviously this is more and more important as we have now AI protocols like Model Context Protocol, MCP, and any type of AI to AI interaction. So we need these to be considering those, but let's not discuss this at this point here. So why are wallets and agents important? So I think everyone knows this now from the online world. You need to store certain more valuable or more important data artifacts in some way you control them. This is sometimes or often called a wallet. This is not very exact because the wallet as such can mostly only be the key store. What's on top of it, the UI and the UX is an agent and the software agent, and the wallet is just the key store. However, I think more and more convergence is now around the term that this wallet is something where you store more valuable items. So you probably have heard about Tim Berners-Lee's project Inrupt, or company Inrupt, and they have a technology called solid pods. They completely now have shifted communications and call their pods agentic wallets. And this is not only in the wake of AI, but in general as the term wallet has been adopted more strongly in this field. So we work on trust over IP also with this project, which formulates the governance frameworks of how ecosystems work internally and interoperate. And so trust over IP has coined the term trust tasks. And this means that are agent-to-agent tasks that can be executed via these agents. And Alice and Bob, again, can use these trust tasks to do certain things. A very simple thing can be they can issue each other R cards, which is relationship cards, which means they can add on top of this cryptographic layer that we have built underneath, human-readable data items to one another. And these relationship cards can be, just as you know, address information, signal contact details, phone, email, whatever you want them to contain, but you can basically have a reliable sharing between those parties with a standardized framework and standardized schema for issuing these data sets. And this all happens completely peer-to-peer, so no central intermediary, and this is basically built on top of that architecture that you have built, and this can be a basic trust task that is actually performed. It can be other things, it can be messaging, it can be anything that you can think of, but this is the basic thing that is there planned as first. So this trusted data sharing is just, as I said, one of potentially 100 different trust tasks that these first-person agents can do with one another. So moving on, I said, let's look at why this is important. So we have now built the fundament, we have the identifiers, we have the credentials, we have the wallets and agents handling all that. So how can we actually apply this in practice, and who is actually desiring to have such a thing? So how can they now trust anyone else? And this is where this will be important, because then this is not an end in itself that they have the personal relationships. So they want to use this knowledge about themselves somewhere. So we want to have a context in which this is rooted, where Alice and Bob can actually create meaningful interactions among themselves and within this context. And this is what we call a digital trust ecosystem. And this complete decentralized digital identity architecture that we have just portrayed, this is known as a digital trust ecosystem when this all comes into play, because this is not from the starting point something that's adopted globally, but you will have an ecosystem in which this is happening, and this is what we call a digital trust ecosystem. And this is usually the model you may have seen also in earlier presentations that I held a couple of years back, issuer holder verifier model. So someone says something about a person, the holder, and the verifier wants to verify. This is actually the construct that we have looked at. And we have, for this certain context, the governing authority that is basically defining the rules, the trust registry, the schemas of the data that's exchanged, and so on. And this is actually the context in which this is happening. And so if they now are in such a digital trust ecosystem, what can they do with this? So they are bound to a trust anchor in their trust ecosystem, and this trust anchor, this instance that is responsible for that ecosystem, issues them the personhood credentials, one per person, as stated earlier, and they still have their personal relationship under this, and this is all happening in the most privacy-preserving way with zero-knowledge proof cryptographic procedures. So they can now vouch for themselves, among themselves, within this ecosystem, and this can be extremely useful, as I will show to you in a second in the example that is one of the reasons why we are actually building this and are working on this. So you probably are all familiar with open source projects. You probably have heard about Linux Foundation. Linux Foundation is a big organization that's not only governing the open source development of Linux, but a ton of different other projects. And they have recently and oftentimes been attacked with malware injection attacks in open source projects. So the most famous one that you probably have all heard about is the Chiatan backdoor attack, where basically a fraudulent actor tried to infuse malicious code into an open source repo. This was kind of detected last minute by a smart person who looked at certain things in the code repo, but it was more or less a coincidence. And this is something they want to tackle very, very soon and very accurately and strongly now. And they have actually looked at a couple of things, and Jim Zemlin, the executive director of Linux Foundation, gave a keynote at the member summit in March. And what he actually said is, we need decentralized trust systems, and we need first-person credentials. So actually, what I have outlined before here is feeding into the first real-world use case at Linux Foundation. So they want to have proof that you are a real person with real trust relationships in the most privacy-preserving way, and they want to use this in their open source projects to validate the developers who are working on open source repos that are, yeah, very important for running our digital infrastructure in the world. So they have also referenced the paper that I have shown you earlier. So we need personhood credentials to counter any type of fraud. And actually, they want to help that this infrastructure, first-person infrastructure, is coming to life. And they actually want to start with open source core development of the Linux kernel, so which is kind of hilarious because this is probably the most important thing that people are working on under the whole Linux umbrella, because Linux is basically fueling the world. So they want to have open source projects being infused by first-person credentials, and they want to start with the Linux kernel. And they obviously want to leverage what's built within Linux Foundation. I've already mentioned Open Wallet Foundation creating the software agents. I've mentioned Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust and Trust over IP as open source repo and governance framework generators to actually create the credential world. And then the ecosystem will be adopted as a Linux Foundation ecosystem for the developers first under Linux Foundation. And this is in this trust picture that we've seen earlier, the ecosystem where we start this off with. So Linux Foundation is the trust anchor for these personal credentials in their realm, and the relationship credentials of developers are underneath and can be brought into this, this ecosystem to actually prove they are humans and that they have real trust relationships and that they have certain skills. So, this is obviously a major thing. This is a big adoption vector, and if this now picks up, then obviously we have a great nucleus to start with and a great ecosystem to work with from the start. Linux Foundation has 1,500 different projects and around 17,000 participating companies in the open source development, so this is kind of really cool stuff. And yeah, so this is why we are also very excited as the people behind this project to actually work on it. So, scale is one of the final things I want to tackle. Obviously, this is one ecosystem at a time. So, but we want this to be interoperable on a larger scale. So we need trust networks to bridge between different contexts. So this works not only in one ecosystem. So we want to have trust relationships usable across different ecosystems. And this is why a bunch of the people involved in this project have created an organization called IRA. It started off as the Global Acceptance Network, but in the general sense, it helps to build bridges between different trust ecosystems and make them interoperable. And this is the core goal. And the first-person network and the first-person credential project is one part of the ecosystems in this IRA context. And we will use IRA to bridge all this, what we are doing, to different ecosystems and make it interoperably available in other ecosystems. So this is the key mission. I don't want to go into full detail here. We could spend another 1 or 2 hours just talking about IRA, but this may be another presentation at some time. So if you want to take a look at what IRA has done in that space, there's a white paper available introducing the first-person credentials. And it was launched this year in Davos at the World Economic Forum, and it was presented there. So there's a whole paper, and everything that I've said here is now available also in this white paper, but also there's a comprehensive frequently asked question paper already available, which basically answers also more in-depth technical questions. So, having all that said, having said that we need this as a fundamental paradigm shift in how we interact in the online world, having a truly self-sovereign, user-controlled data space, and having a complete self-sovereign control over everything we do. So who else is going to build and develop, deploy and support sustained first-person technologies? It's probably not, again, a centralized organization. So if we are all today now the product of centralized services and platforms, it can only be aligned with the incentives that we all have if this is the people who own this and the people who build this own this, and this is not something, again, being centralized in an architecture perspective and into a governance structure that is strictly centralized. So people must be the owners of this whole thing. And this is the reason why this is built up as a first-person network cooperative. So this is the social utility behind it. Obviously, it cannot work without any kind of formal interaction point. So we have a cooperative plan to actually govern the whole project. And the owners of this cooperative and members of the cooperative own the whole thing. So this is a completely, user member empowered place to actually make this all happen. And this is, to sum it up, a new social utility. It's completely decentralized. It will deliver these first-person technologies that are outlined here. It's exclusive to people, and it's available to build trust relationships everywhere. And if you think about use cases, you can think about any type of centralized business network or platform to actually transition this in a completely decentralized and user and self-controlled way where you manage your own personal relationships. And this can, if it works out as we envision it, turn everything around. And I think we need this power shift in the whole online world towards users and to be user-centric again. And this is also one of the key drivers why I'm involved in this project. So, wrapping things up. When is this now all happening? The time is now. Actually, everything that's going on in the world is actually urging us to make it happen now. And we are already working on forming the first-person network cooperative. Work is underway there. The governance framework for this first-person governance is underway. It's being written. We are working on the technical roadmap. As you can imagine, this is all kind of not so easy to accomplish if you're applying modern cryptographic procedures in this way. It needs to be well thought through, and everything needs to be fleshed out. So we have an architecture group working on these things, and we're already enlisting development partners to actually make it all happen. This is a very broad and diverse set of work packages. So we are an energetic group already working at it, but it's lots of work required to make it all happen. So we are at it, and the first person project will most likely be introduced at a very interesting event that's happening in July in Geneva called Global Digital Collaboration. This is all about verifiable relationships and trust ecosystems and wallets and verifiable credentials and all that. It's happening in July, in 2 days, 1st and 2nd of July in Geneva. And basically everyone who is involved in this space will be there. And who is actually doing all this? It's you. So we actually are also looking for collaborators and contributors. And if you are interested in following up on that, I will share the link to a mailing list in a second. So in the sense is, we should never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. I think we are showing this here every day, also at demo parties like Revision. It's in fact the only thing that ever has changed the world. So we are very convinced this is something that will happen and will be needed, and this is what drives us here. Yeah, so in the next couple of weeks, up to the July event, there will be lots of work going on. So if you want to follow what's going on, then I invite you to join the mailing list that is listed here. There's the QR code and the link listed here. So if you're interested just in following up on what's going on, if you like what you heard here today, then obviously please stay tuned. And you can always approach me also directly over the usual channels. If you have any questions, want to contribute, or just have a chat about it, then let me know. And yeah, basically that wraps it up for now. Thanks for the people in the room who have listened here patiently, and for those in the online stream who hopefully have enjoyed this glimpse into this world. So I know this is a tough topic on an Easter morning. It's such a broad thing to dive into and understand, but This is something that is very dear to our hearts, and I thank everyone who is involved in the project. Particularly, I want to thank Drummond Reed, who is one of the key minds behind this project, and this is also his slide deck that I'm leveraging here, so thanks for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to making that happen and invite everyone who is interested to join the crowd. Thanks.